Hello, my name is Apipo and I am the academic coordinator from the International Academic Forum, and I am here in Tokyo, Japan for the Asian Conference on Art and Humanities, Cultural Studies and Social Sciences 2024. And joining me today is Mr. Timothy Langley. Mr. Langley, would you introduce yourself for us,
Thank
please?
you very much. My name is Timothy Langley. I am an American. I've been living in Japan for more than 40 years. I went to law school here. I went to law school in the United States. I have been doing corporate law for the vast majority of my career here in Japan, helping companies reach some level of success, establishing companies, but also handling problems that people are confronted with that are sometimes unique and outside of their realm of experience as foreigners living in this country.
You're one of the panelists in our conference here, and the title of the panel is Ethics and Care in Sole Custody Policy. So would you, in brief summary, give a summary of what you have been presenting in the panel, please?
So for maybe 10 or 15 years, I've been assisting people who have been involved in joint custody disputes or in divorces involving children. So as most people know, people in the audience and people on the panel, Japan follows a sole custody regime. That means that in the event of a divorce, the children go to one parent or the other, and almost in all cases it goes to the mother. And in many instances there is a controversy with the father, who is separated from his children, to have any rights, any visibility, any participation in his children's life after there's a split. And so I've been involved in these controversies, and in many instances it actually turns into a parental kidnapping kind of situation. So trying to solve that very difficult problem has been one of the things that I've been doing to the community, or with the community.
In addition to your presentation, IAFOR is setting a theme for academic discussion in general for the next 5 years. So this is in addition, but also in relations to your presentation. So the first thing we want to talk about is AI. So since your background is from law and public policy, from your perspective, what role has AI play in making public policy?
Currently, AI has not played much of a role in establishing public policy. The Japanese are now just still trying to get their arms around the internet, and the cloud is still just almost not quite in touch. It's a little bit out of reach. Right. So AI is far beyond that. Although AI is developing at a breakneck speed, the Japanese are really slow for integrating these technologies into society, into business, into how companies operate. Many companies still use fax machines,
right,
and even the police are not comfortable in using email, and much of their reporting, much of the way that they do police work is analog, it's not digital. So there's a big gap there in terms of technology.
Since Japan is still far-reaching in involving AI into law and policy making, from your view, how can AI help or contribute in making a more effective law or public policy?
Well, there are many tools in AI that help people understand and operate within the restrictions of the law. Right. The real problem with law is that you have to go to law school for 3 years to figure out what it means and how to operate within it. With AI, you can learn by yourself, or you can have a machine teach you the specifics about your particular issue. You don't have to get advice from a bengoshi or from a lawyer. So it does shorten that time. You still sometimes need to talk with the bengoshi. You need to pay somebody some money to kind of push the paper through and give you solid advice. But AI is just, it's so magical in terms of educating you on your specific issue.
So we have seen some places that they use AI to replace judges.
Yes.
What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think we're close. AI, what is it, Open Chat 4?
Yeah, 4.0.
4.0
Yes.
has just come out, and it's such a huge leap to what it was in 1, 2, and 3. So I think the technology is moving so quickly, we really even can't, at this point in time, envision what it's going to be like in 2 or 3 years. It's moving so quickly. I went to a conference last week at the Tokyo Big Site, and the number of people, the number of companies, and the number of innovations that are going on in this space is just astounding. It's almost as if when Apple first came here and they had Apple world in the big conventions, and John Scully would speak, or maybe sometimes Steve Wozniak. That energy and that kind of excitement is existing here in the AI space. So there's a lot to look forward to.
What policy do you think should be the priority for government to contribute to a better development of humanity?
I guess you're asking about Japan. So my area of specialization is Japan. I've lived here most of my life. And I think for government to improve the standard of living and the level of life among the Japanese citizens, of course, that's their primary function.
Right.
It's not quite working. They've been in an economic slump for more than 20 years. The birth rate has continued to fall for 43 years. It's fallen. Their number of deaths have eclipsed the number of births. The number of people within their 20s and 35s are more than a quarter of them have decided they're not going to get married ever. They don't need to, they don't want to. So that leaves 2/3, and of those 2/3, who knows how many of those will actually have children, even though they are of childbearing age. So the Japanese people don't feel hope. They don't feel this expectation that the life that they are going to build for their family or for their children is going to be better than the one that they have.
Okay.
So it's a complicated set of factors, and for policymakers, I think what they need to do is just enhance the economy, enhance the value of the yen, continue with trade, and also to encourage more development of industries in Japan. They're doing that with chip manufacturing, with high tech, and with AI, but also with the defense intelligence and defense manufacturing. So it's a really new world. I mean, Japan, many people who live here for a long time complain that it doesn't change, it moves so slowly, but things are really happening at a very rapid pace these days.
So at this conference, we talk about global citizenship in a education setting. How can university do? What should we teach the children? But from your perspective, from a macro governmental level or even international level, how does global citizenship apply to the general public?
It's a great question. Japan is an island nation. We already know that. It's an island nation. It is not accustomed to or very familiar with expanding. The Japanese people themselves they're great travelers as tourists, but they don't emigrate very easily or very well. Other countries do, other cultures do. So on the other hand, the Japanese are very aware of their role in the global economy and what they do with trade and investment. So lots of companies and individuals come to Japan for trade and investment to even live here. But for foreigners to come here and assimilate, it's also very difficult. Similarly, it's difficult for the Japanese to go overseas. But there's a very robust space for these sister city relationships. So even in these small cities throughout Japan, people understand what their relationship is with other countries. And different cities like Sendai or Hiroshima might have 5 or 6 different sister city relationships. So they know what their role is in dealing with other nations, dealing with other cities. And lots of people come as tourists and study groups and that sort of thing. So there's that layer of understanding what a global citizen is, but putting it into practice and into a robust practice, it's still difficult when people come to visit Japan. It's very alien. You travel a little bit outside of Japan, maybe 20 or 30 minutes, and the level of English language ability is just very low.
Yeah, it's also one of those history factors as well. And Japan has always been a very close country for such a long time that they are accustomed or used to the way of their own living.
That's right.
So it might take, do you think it might take although even you mentioned that Japan has also been involved in the global context to a certain level, but still, we still see this, kind of a barrier between...
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
And it's not just, it's society at large, but also getting down to brass tacks. For example, the joint custody law that was just passed, going from a sole custody to a joint custody, it involves a lot of things that are integrated into what the philosophy was and how the lawyers and how the judges operate under that. And moving off of, even though the law was passed, it goes into effect this time next year, it's going to be 5 years or 6 years before you really start to see significant change in how the law is applied. So although people are really hopeful that maybe they have better access to their children after the event of a divorce, even though they have acrimony between their spouse and them, it just takes a little bit more time. Things don't move as quickly as we wish they would.
Is that the effect of the international influence to have a shared custody?
That's right, yes.
Oh, okay.
So there's been a lot of complaints about sole custody, but the real issue has come from ambassadors and people who have lived here and they've married a Japanese person, and the Japanese person, maybe they live overseas, they go overseas, and one of the spouses takes the children back to Japan, and now they have this protective bubble. And so it's created a lot of consternation among Japan's allies and friends and greatest trading partners. And people don't know that when you marry a Japanese girl, you never know, you never expect, or a Japanese man, that it is possible within the confines of their law that this person could take your children from you and you would never see them until they reach maturity. And when you're in that situation, or when somebody tells you that, you just say that can't be true. We're in love, and of course we're married. That would never happen.
And last topic, we're talking about leadership.
Yes.
So since we talk about government, we talk about governance in general, what do you see as the problem of today's leadership in general, at the national level or international governance, and what can be done to make it better?
That's a good question. Japan is typically considered to be a hierarchical society. It's it's a pyramidal society. There's the top people, and they're usually the top people because of their age and seniority. And changing something like that is very difficult. And so when people are studying Japanese politics and they look on TV, all of these old guys in loud suits, they're the ones that are calling the shots.
Right.
And the level of frustration among the normal people or younger people is so great, because you can't go into that until you've paid your debts and you've gained experience, and that means you're going to be older, and it's too late for you. So people are impatient about that.
Right.
At the same time, though, Japan has established leadership in the G7. Japan is G7 leadership now. So the Japanese aspire to that at the national level. They want to be involved in rulemaking and in peacemaking and being kind of a mediator between warring countries or people who are having difficulties. So in some of those, they're really good. They're also good at diplomacy. They do diplomacy a little bit different than many other countries. They don't have an army. They have a self-defense forces.
Right.
So it's an interesting way of projecting leadership and projecting, their influence throughout the world. It's just a different way of looking at it. But I'm hopeful that the Japanese will always stay within the leadership. Of the G20, they're probably the number 3 or the number 4 economy of the world. So they have something to offer.
From the public policy and law perspective, what does the future of leadership in the government or governance should look like? Okay,
that's a great question, because we're going through, not just in the United States, maybe you can't say that in Russia. Mr. Putin just received his 3rd term as president, but in Japan there is an atmosphere of change with the LDP, which is the party in power, the Liberal Democratic Party. It's been in power since the end of the war, except for a very brief period. But there is a sense of disappointment and money in politics being a little bit too cozy with the political party. So it is possible that there could be a change in government, but among everything else that the Japanese people desire in politics or in the economy is stability. They don't want anything up and down really on a grand scale. Right. So with regard to what the future is going to look like, I don't know. I follow Japanese politics pretty carefully. I don't know if the current prime minister is going to stay prime minister for many more months. There's that much tension going on.
Right.
But I mean, even with Mr. Abe, who was the two previous prime ministers, he was the longest serving prime minister, and people thought that maybe a new pattern was being established, that the prime minister would be in office long enough where people would actually remember how to pronounce his last name, right? So that happens now with Mr. Kishida. People are familiar with him, but he hasn't been in office for 4 years yet. So.
Right, thank you so much. And last but not least, your message to future IAFOR conference attendees.
Well, I think the work that they're doing is epical. It's forward-looking. It helps lay the possibilities of groundwork for moving forward. I'm very honored to be invited and to speak on this very important panel about joint custody. But there's change in the air at all levels and in all countries. There's really a lot going on. And it's just a really great time to be alive and to be involved in that. And I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.